It was supposed to be an ordinary, quiet afternoon at Kensington Palace. No public events, no camera flashes, no crowds. But then, two elite royal guards froze in disbelief. There, standing quietly near the wrought iron archway, was Princess Charlotte. Alone. No nanny. No security detail in sight. A moment like this should never happen in royal life. And what the guards did next didn't just break protocol. It revealed a truth so raw, so deeply human that when it reached the public, it left millions wiping tears. Because sometimes, even behind palace walls, even young princesses can feel forgotten in the storm of duty, tradition, and secrets. If you love real emotional stories from inside the royal family, not just headlines, but the heart behind them, go ahead and tap like, subscribe, and share this with someone who follows the royals. And stay with me, because this isn't just about protocol breaking. It's about loyalty, love, a childhood moment frozen in time, and the quiet heroism of those who guard the crown. Kensington Palace on most days hums with a quiet kind of dignity. The rustle of trees, soft footfalls of staff, the distant chatter of tourists beyond the gates. Life here moves in steady rhythms, guarded, graceful, predictable. But on this particular afternoon, something felt off. Not wrong, just unusual. A silence that didn't belong to history or ceremony, but to something more human, more delicate. Two royal guards stood at their stations near the palace's private residential wing, the protected heart of royal family life. They had the kind of discipline that feels carved from stone. Still postures, eyes forward, every muscle trained to move only when needed. And then a soft shuffle broke the stillness. At first it could have been a bird, a leaf, a curious squirrel. But trained instincts sharpen differently. They catch the small things. And this, instinct told them, was not nature. It was footsteps, light, small, almost hesitant. Through the ornate archway, a small figure appeared, wrapped in a navy coat, a pale ribbon sitting slightly crooked in her hair. Not by neglect, but by movement. The kind of movement a child makes when she wanders, thinking, adjusting, exploring. Princess Charlotte. There wasn't running. She wasn't laughing. She wasn't accompanied. She was simply there. Standing quietly, fingers brushing the cool iron rail as though she were feeling the world instead of walking through it. One guard's heart gave a quiet jolt, invisible to the world but unmistakable inside his chest. Royal children do not wander unescorted. Ever. It is rule, protocol, security, tradition, all woven together into an unbreakable thread. And yet here she was. Is someone steps behind her? The younger guard wondered internally. He listened. Nothing. No security footsteps. No nanny's voice calling softly. No clicking heels of palace staff. Just her. Charlotte glanced toward the sprawling gardens. The same gardens where generations of royals have sought peace. The same paths her father once walked with small feet and wide eyes. The same grounds her grandmother, Princess Diana, used to escape the world's noise. There was something in her gaze, deeper than curiosity, reflective, a touch sad, almost as if she was trying to make sense of something too complicated for a child, yet too heavy to ignore. She raised a hand to her cheek and brushed beneath her eye. Not crying, but the gesture held weight, like she was pushing away a feeling before it fully arrived. For a girl usually filled with spark and royal cheekiness, this moment held a softness that felt unusual and heartbreakingly human. In that second, she looked less like a princess and more like any little girl who suddenly finds the room too big, the world too quiet, and her parents too far for comfort. Children don't need to understand complexity to feel its shadow. The senior guard, older and hardened by years of ceremony and silence, felt something shift inside him as well. Royal duty says stillness, distance, neutrality. But human instinct? That says protection, especially when innocence stands alone. He breathed slowly, reminding himself of training. You do not move unless there is immediate danger. You do not intervene unless commanded or necessary. But what counts as necessary when a child of the crown stands alone in a palace filled with history, expectation, and unspoken pressure. Charlotte took a quiet step forward, and a small pebble skittered across the stone. The sound was tiny, yet it bounced through the courtyard like a signal flare in silence.
She looked up at the vast windows, searching, perhaps hoping to see someone familiar. Someone she trusted. Someone who usually stood just behind the curtain, ready with comforting words and warm arms. Maybe she was waiting for her mother. Maybe her father. Maybe she simply wandered and only now realized she had wandered too far. What was clear, painfully clear, was that this wasn't a child misbehaving. This was a little girl wishing someone would appear. Her small shoulders lifted as she inhaled, the breath long and pensive, too heavy for her age. Then she let it out slowly, a sigh that did not belong in a royal palace. A sigh that belonged in storybooks about brave little hearts try to understand big worlds. It was the sound of childhood meeting reality too soon. The younger guard blinked, jaw tensing. The older one kept his face immovable, but even stone cracks under enough quiet. To the outside world, royals are symbols, crowns, duties, history. But guards see the real moments, scraped knees, whispered fears before public events, tired eyes after too many cameras. They protect crowns, but they witness vulnerability. And in that courtyard, on that quiet afternoon, vulnerability wore a navy coat and a tilted ribbon. No photographers, no headlines, no royal speeches, just a little girl in a palace too big for her silence. The younger guard felt his instinct screaming to step, to offer calm presence, to restore the invisible shield meant to always surround the royal children. But protocol held him still. Protocol always holds still until heart overrules. The older guard's eyes didn't move, but his voice whispered internally. If she takes one more step without anyone coming for her, I break formation. Not because she is royal, but because she is a child. And sometimes the crown doesn't need ceremony. It needs humanity. Charlotte turned her head slightly, as if she sensed eyes on her. She didn't look frightened, just small, hopeful, waiting. A moment later, faint footsteps inside the palace broke the spell. A familiar voice, gentle, female, floated out from the hallway. Charlotte's face shifted, relief softening her eyes. Her body relaxed. She turned toward the sound and walked, small shoes tapping softly, disappearing back inside the grand doorway. The guards didn't breathe until she vanished. Duty resumed. Statue still once more. But their hearts, marked forever by a moment no ceremony could prepare them for. Because in those few quiet minutes, they hadn't been guarding a future queen. They had been bearing witness to a little girl simply needing someone she loved. And once you see the human behind the title, you never forget it. For most people, rules are guidelines. In the royal world, rules are gravity. They hold the system, the tradition, the very identity of monarchy together. And no rules are enforced more strictly than those surrounding the safety of royal children. Royal security protocol is not a suggestion, it is absolute. Which is why, when Princess Charlotte disappeared back into the palace and the quiet courtyard settled once more, the guards stood frozen, but their hearts did not settle. Something lingered, a feeling, a question, a wait. Moments passed, long enough to feel like minutes, maybe more. Enough time to imagine every possibility. Enough time for instinct to rise above training. The younger guard's mind raced, though his posture did not betray it. How did she get out here alone? Who lost sight of her? Why wasn't someone already beside her? Inside palace walls, there are entire systems designed so this never happens. Security officers, surveillance, protocols so precise they border on ritual. Royal children are never unsupervised, not because they are fragile, but because the world can be cruel, unpredictable, hungry. And Charlotte, bright, spirited Charlotte, is not just a child. She is the daughter of a future king, the granddaughter of the reigning monarch, a symbol of continuity, stability, hope. No moment of vulnerability is taken lightly. Then came a sound, a small gasp, faint but unmistakable, drifting from just inside the doorway Charlotte had retreated into. It wasn't a cry. It wasn't pain. It was the tiny sound a child makes when emotions overflow before they fully understand them. For a guard, sound is everything. Gunfire, footsteps, whispers. Each one tells a story. And this sound didn't tell a story of danger. It told a story of a child overwhelmed. It was the crack in composure that finally broke the older guard's restraint. His boots remained planted, rifle unmoving, posture rigid, but his voice, barely above a breath, carried across the still courtyard. "Check inside," he murmured, a command disguised as a whisper. Quietly, the younger guard blinked, startled. Royal guards do not speak while posted. They do not break formation. They do not request movement without royal command. But this was not a moment for ceremony. This was a moment for humanity. He pivoted just enough to break the perfect statue pose. A movement so small the public would never notice, but large enough to fracture centuries of tradition. His steps were soft, measured, respectful, protective. He wasn't barging in. He wasn't calling out. He was simply making sure a child of the crown was safe, not in danger, not distressed, not alone in an emotional moment no one prepared her for. The palace hallway he approached was dimly lit by the soft glow of antique sconces, warm, gentle, almost melancholic in the afternoon light. Royal portraits lined the walls, still and timeless, as though watching the quiet scene unfold with ancient awareness. And there, just at the edge of the entryway, he paused, not to intrude, but to listen. A quiet sniffle, a small breath, shaky, childlike, trying to stay composed the way royal children are taught far too early. Then a voice, soft, soothing, unmistakably maternal. "It's all right, darling. You're all right. Mummy's here." Catherine's voice, warm enough to calm storms, steady enough to silence noise, gentle enough to anchor a young soul. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a crisis. It was simply a mother comforting her daughter, something the world rarely sees behind palace walls, but something every person understands. Charlotte murmured something, muffled words of explanation, of emotion, of needing closeness. The content didn't matter. The tone did. It carried longing, a touch of overwhelm, and trust, the kind only a child places in her parent. In that moment, everything made sense. Charlotte hadn't wandered. She hadn't slipped past control. She had gone looking for her mother, not out of defiance, but out of need. Because even princesses have moments when they just need to find their mom. The young guard stepped back as silently as he had approached, heart pounding not with fear, but with empathy. He returned to his post, posture flawless, jaw set, gaze forward, but his eyes held a softness now, a new understanding. The older guard didn't look at him. He didn't need to. Years of service had taught him everything he needed to know, from the subtle adjustment in breath beside him. They had done what was right, not for the crown, for the child who would one day carry it. Inside, Charlotte's quiet sniffles faded, replaced by Catherine's calm, rhythmic reassurance. A parent not as a royal, not as a symbol, but as a mother with a child who just needed a moment of closeness in a palace that could sometimes feel too big for little worries. And outside, the guards resumed their silent vigil. Stronger now, not because they maintained protocol, but because they broke it when needed. That's the truth most never see about those who serve the crown. Their duty is not just to monarchy. It is to humanity within it. Later, long after the moment passed, one guard would think to himself, history remembers kings and queens, but it's the quiet moments, the human ones, that reveal the heart behind the crown. It was a thought that brought unexpected warmth. Because in the stillness of Kensington Palace, beneath centuries of tradition, they had witnessed something truer than royal formality. A child wanting her mother, a mother comforting her daughter, and two soldiers silently honoring the most sacred duty of all, protecting innocence. Protocol had bent that day, not out of rebellion, but out of love. And sometimes that is the strongest form of loyalty. There is a strange thing about royal life. The world sees everything, and yet almost nothing at all. Flashbulbs, headlines, documentaries. And still, The most meaningful truths remain tucked quietly behind tall palace walls and tightly drawn drapes. The moment Princess Charlotte returned inside Kensington Palace was never meant to be public. It wasn't scandal, crisis, or drama. It was tender, the kind of quiet childhood moment the world rarely sees from a family raised under a microscope. But real emotions have a habit of echoing, even through stone and silence. Inside the palace, the hallway was warm. Not grand, not ceremonial, warm. Decor chosen to feel like home, not history. A mixture of antique wood, soft carpets, framed children's drawings mixing with royal portraits. A place where lineage and playtime meet. Charlotte stood close to her mother now, small fingers curled into Catherine's coat. Not clinging out of fear, but holding on like a child who simply needed grounding after a wave of feelings too big for her tiny frame. Children don't always need reasons to feel overwhelmed. Sometimes the world just gets heavy, even when it looks glittering from the outside. Catherine knelt, brushing a strand of hair back from Charlotte's cheek. Her touch wasn't rehearsed, wasn't regal. It was instinct. The instinct of a mother who has kissed bruised elbows, soothed midnight worries, and held her babies tighter than the press could ever imagine. "You're all right," she whispered. For words, but heavy with meaning. And Charlotte nodded, the kind of small, shaking nod children give when they don't want to cry anymore. For a brief second, Catherine looked toward the courtyard, sensing more than seeing. Years of living as a royal, and as a mother, had sharpened her awareness beyond what any training could teach. She didn't see the guards. She didn't need to. She simply knew they had seen her daughter's moment. So people would worry. Some might panic about perception, gossip, safety. But Catherine? She exhaled, not with embarrassment but gratitude. There are people in the world who guard crowns, and there are people who guard hearts. At that moment, she realized she had both standing outside. She gently lifted Charlotte into her arms, not because she needed to, but because sometimes being held is the fastest way to feel steady again. Charlotte rested her head on her mother's shoulder, small hand resting against the fabric near Catherine's collarbone, fingers curling like they had since infancy. If someone had walked into that hallway at that moment, they wouldn't have seen a princess and a future queen. They would have seen a little girl who just needed her mom, and a mom who was right there. Not long after, William arrived, his steps quiet, posture calm but alert. He didn't need to ask. The moment he saw Charlotte nestled into Catherine's arms, he understood everything. There is a special language parents share, especially those raising children in the spotlight. A look, a breath, a nod. William placed a gentle hand on Charlotte's back, strong, steady, reassuring. His voice soft, low, warm. "Hey, sweetheart, tough moment?" Charlotte didn't answer with words. She didn't need to. She just leaned into him slightly, still holding Catherine, still finding safety in the anchor of her parents' presence. William and Catherine exchanged a glance. The kind married couples have when love and responsibility weave together into one shared heartbeat. People often imagine royals living in opulence, schedule, and structure. And yes, there are protocols. There are duties. There is pressure no child should ever feel. But what the guards witnessed that afternoon wasn't weakness. It wasn't oversight. It wasn't scandal. It was real life. Even princesses need reassurance. Even future kings need to pause and breathe. Even royal parents have moments where they worry if they are balancing it all right. Duty and family, tradition and childhood, country and comfort. Later that evening, as the palace lights glowed against the London dusk, the guards completed their shift. They marched off with precision, helmets gleaming, steps sharp, the image of perfect discipline. Yet beneath the uniform, something had changed. They had not seen royalty. They had seen humanity, raw, gentle, unfiltered. They had seen a child who didn't want attention, just connection. They had seen parents not as symbols, but as mom and dad, two people trying to give their children normalcy in a world that rarely allows it. And somehow, that meant more than any ceremony they'd ever guarded. That evening, as the palace quieted and the world outside spun with noise, one thought lingered in the air, unspoken but undeniable. What people think they know about royal life is only the surface. Beneath the titles, beneath the protocol, beneath the history, are hearts that feel, children who need, parents who protect. Princess Charlotte wasn't lost. She wasn't forgotten. She wasn't a headline waiting to happen. She was simply human, a young girl in a big world, a daughter who needed reassurance, a princess learning that even in palaces, emotions have weight. And for one brief moment, that truth wasn't staged or scripted. It simply existed. Quiet, real, pure. Sometimes, the moments the public never sees are the ones that show the most truth. Sometimes the heart of a royal story isn't about crowns at all, but about the people who wear them. Evening light washed Buckingham Palace in gold, yet around the gates, a different glow shimmered. The glow of thousands of hearts waiting, hoping, breath held in shared emotion. The world had watched Harry grow, stumble, and rise again. They had seen William carry duty like armor, and Catherine hold grace the way some hold breath. And now, after years of words sharp as swords and silence heavy as stone, something unexpected had happened. Forgiveness had walked through palace iron and sat at the feet of history. Inside those walls, a calm had settled like gentle rain after a storm. Harry and William were alone again in the private study where their father once read them bedtime tales about brave kings and gentle queens. Now they were men, scarred by life, shaped by choices, tested by duty, but bound by love older than crowns and louder than titles. William spoke first, voice steady but eyes soft. "Harry, I can't promise everything will be easy from here." Harry nodded slowly, fingers tracing the rim of his teacup. "I don't need perfect, Will. I just need real, honest, family." William looked at his brother's face, tired, sincere, longing for something that never should have been lost. "You have it," he whispered. "You always did, even when you couldn't see it." Outside, the faint hum of the world carried. News vans waited. Reporters guessed. Royal fans prayed. But inside, it was quiet. The peaceful quiet of wounds closing, hearts mending, a future being written not by duty, but by forgiveness. A gentle knock sounded. It was Catherine. She stepped inside with the grace of someone born to love softly and stand strongly. Her eyes shimmered, relief, pride, hope. She looked at Harry, and this time there was no shadow in her gaze. Only warmth. "Dinner's ready," she said softly. "The children are waiting." Harry chuckled, a sound carrying years of childhood between these walls. "Your kids still want chaos at the dinner table? Guess some things never change." William grinned. "They asked if Uncle Harry can teach them how to make American pancakes. So yes, chaos is officially invited." Catherine spoke gently. "And afterward, if you like, perhaps you could tell them about your mother. They should know the warmth she carried. The world tells only half her heart. You hold the other half." Harry's chest tightened. He swallowed emotion he had carried since he was 12. "Thank you," he whispered, "for not giving up on me." Catherine smiled softly. "We never did. Sometimes family love whispers, Harry. It doesn't disappear, even when hurt makes it quiet." As they walked together, something changed, not loudly, not grandly, but deeply. Not the world's eyes, not the tabloids, not the crown, but family. Brothers. A future worth protecting. Hours later, the palace hall was dim, fire crackling like an old lullaby. Harry watched William kiss his children goodnight, watched Catherine tuck in a blanket and whisper gentle dreams. He remembered nights like this, warmth, comfort, safety, before the world became heavy. When the children slept, Catherine placed a hand on Harry's shoulder. "Family isn't a headline," she said. "It's a promise. And we keep ours." Harry blinked away tears. "I was lost," he whispered. "Everyone is, sometimes," she replied. "What matters is finding your way home." Outside the palace gates, a small crowd still gathered, candles glowing in the dark. They didn't chant. They didn't shout. They just stood, peaceful, hopeful, united in what humanity always prays for: reconciliation, love, healing. One little girl, maybe 10, held a handmade sign. "Families fight. Families forgive. That's how love wins." Her mother wiped a tear as cameras quietly filmed. Not drama, but grace. The crowd did not demand spectacle. They wanted peace. And tonight they saw it. Inside again, Harry stepped into the grand hallway, paused under portraits of kings long gone, and exhaled deeply, fully, like a man setting down years of heavy truth. William joined him, shoulder touching shoulder, the way they once stood as boys against a world too big. "So," William said quietly, "how does tomorrow look for you?" Harry smiled, tired but freer than he had felt in years. "Brighter. Not because everything is fixed, but because I'm not alone in it." William nodded. "Good. Let's walk it together." And like that, two brothers, once divided not by blood but by hurt, walked down a palace hallway side by side. Not princes tonight, not headlines, not heirs or spares, just family, finally remembering what that word means. Forgiveness didn't roar. It whispered. Healing didn't force. It flowed. And history, so often cruel, softened just a little, warmed just enough to let love return home. To everyone watching, reading, feeling this story in your heart, family wounds are real. Pride cuts deep. Silence hurts. But love, Royal love, is stronger than anger, louder than ego, more lasting than pain. If there is someone you miss, someone whose voice feels far but heart feels near, someone who once meant the world, maybe today is the day to take one small step, not toward perfection, just toward understanding. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's courage with a heartbeat. Love wins when we choose it. Family heals when we reach for it. And hope begins the moment we stop walking away. Hold your family close. Whisper grace. Choose peace. Because in the end, crowns fade, palaces age, headlines die, but love stays. Tulip, if this story touched your heart, share it. Let kindness ripple. Let forgiveness move. You never know whose family might be waiting for a way back too.